Welcome to Bon Nuts, where we'll be applying the Manzer or mostly Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative to a binary system.
This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back to the Lost Signals. This is our Christmas special, and in keeping with our previous Christmas specials, we are going to be talking about a movie that has to do with Christmas and also has monsters in it. And that movie is Gremlins. So, I am Steve Ramosi. I'm joined here by Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever applies.
And Scott Thurlow.
Hello there.
And, Scott, I believe you had somewhat of a log line for us?
Yes, so it's somewhat of a rephrase of a line from the movie, and also as another reference is that with great fantastical creatures also comes great responsibility.
And zero power.
Yes.
So let's just get started. I'm going to do the intro body conclusion. This story is about a shitty person as a father who decides to mess with mystical powers.
No, hold on. He's not a shitty person per se.
Yeah, you're right. He's certainly not a shitty person, although he makes a shitty choice.
He's a well-meaning idiot, we'll say.
He's a buffoon.
Yes, exactly.
That's a good term for it. He is a buffoon who decides to buy a Mogwai, which is a gremlin, we'll say. And he has 3 rules to follow, which he immediately doesn't follow any of them. And
that's not true either.
That's absolutely true. Well, listen, if you're put in charge of this Mogwai and something happens by accident, that's still your fault.
He never breaks the rules, though, but we'll get into it later, is what I'm saying.
Regardless, he is not supposed to expose it to light. He immediately does that. He immediately allows his family to expose it to light. And then he tells them the rule. After it's exposed to light, he tells them the rules, which are don't expose it to light, don't get it wet, which happens pretty quickly, and then most importantly, don't feed it after midnight, which also happens pretty quickly. So, granted, these people might have been tricked into this, or they were accidents. However, you motherfuckers fucked up.
Sure.
Let's agree upon that. It takes a very small amount of I don't know. It doesn't take very much to actually follow these rules, and they were all screwed up within the first night of having this gremlin. So, in standard Spielbergian form, even though this is not directed by Spielberg, he was a producer, and it's a very Spielbergian movie, we'll say. All of these things go wrong pretty quickly, and then we're thrust into the plot, as it were. So after the Mogwai is hit with a little bit of water, it reproduces. The gremlins, we'll say, that are produced by being exposed to water are not quite as nice as the original, and then upon eating after midnight, they turn into complete murderous monsters who then go on to terrorize the town. I think that's the pretty down and dirty version of this. I think every major plot point is hit by saying that.
Yeah. I mean, they go and fight them, but I think the major mistake is letting Corey Feldman into a house.
Yeah, or any small child, younger child.
But you're right. Like, the father was responsible in the fact that he didn't remember the rules immediately to tell his family that. Like, I hate to be reminded of it by the light. And I don't think he understood the repercussions of what using this Chinese technology.
He wasn't ready, clearly.
Yeah, especially towards the end when they specifically state you're not ready for
exactly
to handle the Magua.
So I'm going for
so,
it. God.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly straightforward kind of plot. Throughout this entire movie, they're showing other movies in the background. Now, often I say don't show a better movie in the movie but I think it's a lot, both of them demonstrating what their influence was and also foreshadowing on the plot.
They're very pertinent and applied to the plot.
I think it's well used in this movie.
And
right.
So it's one part It's a Wonderful Life. It's one part like Pod People. It's a nice brew of different like the Christmas movie
influences,
mixed with like the horror mixed with the comedy. That I think for the most part, it pulls it off. It's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's paced rather well. And I was going to save this for my recommendation. I'm going to say it now. I think that coming out of this movie, you remember the great parts and forget about all of what didn't particularly work. And
which wasn't much, I'll say that.
Yeah, but the mediocrity of certain scenes.
Sure.
Like you do remember, like the bar scene is perhaps one of the best scenes in a kind of Christmas horror film I've seen in a very long time. It reminds me, to go back to our previous one, Santa Sleigh, with that opening dinner scene with Fran Drescher and all that. Like, that's what you remember from the film, like that great, funny scene. So that's my thoughts on the intro, body, conclusion.
No, I agree. I'm probably going to give it a 3 just because, as you said, you guys both said that it's paced very well and it juggles those 3 things: comedy, horror, and what else did you say?
Christmas movie.
Christmas, yeah, and within a Christmas framework, sure. Yeah. So I mean, like you said, the nitpicks that I personally have are pretty few and far between. Sure, there's some like weaker, maybe we'll say mediocre like parts, but by and large, I think this movie tackles all those things and does it pretty well and is entertaining throughout. So, and again, the plot makes sense. And again, the other points I'll have to say, we'll get into like characters when we get to it. But I think I'm going to give it a pretty solid 3. I can't really take points off for anything particular or any big way. So,
it's a fun movie. I'll definitely give it that. I think that I had a good time. I'm wavering between a 2 and a 3 right now for intro, body, conclusion. Which, by the way, I think perhaps we should talk about this fairly soon. I'm not sure we should call it intro, body, conclusion anymore. There's going to be like maybe we should call it plot or something like that.
Sure.
But because we don't necessarily talk about it in those 3 parts anymore. Yeah. However, that's a whole other story for another day.
We're getting to that.
What
later.
are you wavering on necessarily?
So if I'm looking at it in terms of intro, body, conclusion, I enjoyed all of them well enough. The intro is probably the weaker of the 3. The body, I could take a point off for like.
I can see what you mean, but
kind of like there are certain points in the middle of the movie where I just these scenes are just for fun and not for like anything advancing the plot or anything like that. The conclusion I think is pretty strong and a fun conclusion as far as this movie goes. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm probably on the side of a 3 right now, but it's an easy drop down to a 2 if I'm convinced one way or another, if I think of something.
May I? So,
absolutely.
To go further into the plot, then, once the Gremlins appear, it's a very strong film. The kitchen scene where the mother turns out to be
she's so
badass warrior, like both with a sword and shield,
hidden
and
badass,
dual wielding. It's great. And then, like, once all of the Gremlins appear, it's not all the scenes are necessary, but that's like Gremlins in a town aren't necessary. It's it's a lot of fun scenes. I said. So if you're looking at the beginning is very, very It's a Wonderful Life. And
she's even watching it at the beginning.
Yeah, she's watching it at the beginning, but like they have their I forget what the character's name, but they have their Mr. Potter and the cranky old woman. They have like Billy, the main character, is a kind of like every guy, a nice guy, but like things never go his way. Trying to provide empathy for the character, and he works in a bank. Like it's almost like they started It's a Wonderful Life, and then they're like, Wonderful Life sucks, so let's throw Gremlins in there.
Yeah,
and it gave like Mr. Potter never got punished. We finally got to see Mr. Potter get punished in this film.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like again, I agree with you. The beginning isn't the best, but it's establishing characters for later on, and. So I don't think I necessarily see a flaw. I don't think I'm going to give it a strong 3, but I think that it's going to be 3 nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I can't pick anything apart or enough to drop it down, so that's all my argument is, Steve-O.
All right, so I'm going to give it a 3 for each of you guys, and I am going to make my decision right now. I think I am going to give it a 3. It's a teetering on a 2,
sure,
3 for me.
I get you,
but I'm going to give it a 3, just because it is, regardless of anything else, it is a very enjoyable film throughout. There's no point in which I have a bad time watching this movie, and I was wondering how it would hold up because I hadn't seen it in a very long time, and it holds up pretty well, to be honest. And that's going to bring us to themes with you, Ian.
So, Gremlins is about buying American. One, they have a Donald Trump voter
Super
prior
80s
to...
theme.
Yeah, it is a very 80s theme, but it's a very kind of... like
metaphorical monsters.
They discuss how... American products don't really exist much anymore, and the influx of foreign goods, and how like foreign goods might have gremlins attached to them. One character in particular rants about this.
He says that outright.
Yeah, but overall, like the themes though is that actually, let me retrace this for a second. This movie is narrated by the buffoon father, who's an inventor.
Yeah, briefly.
No,
sure.
he opens and goes it, and he's telling this
technically,
tale.
yeah, true. Yeah.
Which no one has any proof that the Gremlins ever existed, and he's suspect by nature.
Sure.
So, I think what he is trying to impart is that you shouldn't buy Chinese goods, shouldn't buy foreign goods. You should buy American-made products from American entrepreneurs like himself, and I think that is actually throughout the film. I mean. It's never really, aside from that one character, it's never really thrown at your face, but it's
subtly there throughout. I can.
It's there.
I mean,
yeah.
And the Donald Trump voter dies seeing Gremlins
murdered by Gremlins
after he put foreign parts in his tractor. Afraid that gremlins were in there. Gremlins are then driving his tractor to murder him in his own house. He dies with the confirmation that he was correct all along. And you know what? I think they make a pretty good case. You know, he should have bought a Zenith.
Now, I don't know if I want to say that's Waldo-esque because, like, it's funny because maybe we can retroactively apply it, but certainly I think there's some legitimacy and validity to what you said. I just don't know if it's, like, the main theme of the film. But it's there, and if intended, I'd probably give that a 1 because it's like funny, but also I guess make sure you stick with America, make America great.
What you said is very 80s.
I think that must be intended, right?
Also,
it is very 80s thing to do for sure.
One is Christmas is terrible. Is another
I was getting to that
there.
One because I like that one.
Then also that Steven Spielberg is awesome because they constantly have references to his movies throughout this movie. Whether it's E.T. dolls, whether it's they're everywhere.
Indie, yeah,
Indiana Jones references. The little kid in the beginning is clearly Short Round.
Yeah.
There's a.
I don't know if that's a theme, but it is a reference.
There's a Indiana Jones billboard basically that it is Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Yeah,
there are many references. Sure.
It is a very interesting callback to earlier.
Almost like a thank you for paying for this movie, Steven
Exactly.
Spielberg.
Exactly.
I suppose.
Again, as Scott said, I'm not sure it's a theme, but it's definitely present.
More like style, but I mean, it's all there.
And so I guess in getting back to themes, we should talk about the transformation aspect of the Gremlins. And this isn't necessarily a strongly developed theme in my mind, but it's
nor in the movie, oddly enough.
but it's certainly something that is spoken to in this film to an extent. It's that idea of like follow the rules or you are going to have bad time.
Well, that's kind of what I was
that
going
type
to
of thing.
get at as well. Yeah.
And it's not very well fleshed out in terms of that, I will say.
I agree.
I'm this is another one I'm teetering on because I might give themes a 0 because I'm not sure exactly what the themes of this movie want me to know. And maybe I'm just misinterpreting or not digging deep enough into the themes of the movie, but that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm hoping that you guys have something a little bit deeper for me to dig into.
All right. Well, maybe not deeper, but I was going to run with the one of when you encounter some new technology, be sure to treat it properly, or otherwise things can go awry. Perhaps is it allegory that the Gremlins were for,
or any new technology will screw you over.
Maybe again if you don't handle it properly and follow the directions as you said. So like maybe you can get that out of it, which I mean that's pretty clearly there. If you want to go with the angle of taking them as a metaphor to an extent up for that. And what E just said, I think, again, it's valid to a degree, and it's there, certainly in the film. So I think, like, I guess this comes up maybe to the thing we brought up a couple episodes ago of, like, intent versus execution. I'm not sure how, like, much or deeply they intended those two things or a handful of things, but they're certainly there. So I think there's Steve, I guess my point is, I'm leaning towards a 1 because I think there is enough there that you can dig into any one of these or perhaps combine them all for a 1. But I don't know, like, if I can convince you of anything else otherwise beyond that argument.
Yeah, I mean, if you give it a 1, I completely understand that. I'm going to be on the other...
Sure. And I can understand that.
I'm probably going to give it a 0 for themes. Despite the fact that I think that there are themes that tried to be tackled in this movie, I don't think that it did a particularly strong job of it.
I can certainly...
And I think that this is a movie that... Perhaps in a weaker movie, I might have given this a 1 for themes, but this is a movie. This is a script and a directorial job that I think is pretty strong. And I think that if they wanted to develop a theme more
robustly, perhaps
that's a good word. That they could have.
Sure, I completely see that. And I can maybe see myself doing that, but I think I've convinced myself, and on top of to build on what E said, to give it like maybe a soft 1, but definitely a 1 at the end of the day.
I completely get that, and I'm just like slightly on the other side of that.
That's fair.
I'm more towards Steven's side because you're right about intent versus execution. And what is the intent of this film? It's to make a Christmas film that's funny,
a fun movie, fun monster Christmas.
I think that. It's not incidental, but it's like the transformation sequences, the mutation sequence,
emergent.
They're shallow examinations of like things that I mean I'm not going to say that like shallow in the sense of like there's nothing there. It's just that like I don't think their intent was to say anything aside from having a fun time, maybe to give homage to like Twilight Zones or the Pod People type things.
I get you.
And I think it pulls that off well, but I don't know if and doing an homage well it counts as a theme, so I'm going to give it a soft 0.
That's actually very well said. I think that's an important point. I think that this does reference very strongly. I think this does a strong job of doing reference, but I don't think that necessarily lends itself directly to themes. If you're going to do a reference that is a theme, you need to make it explicit, and I don't think that this movie does that.
I mean, you guys make a really good point, and I almost could switch, but I think I'll, because like maybe my nostalgia factor is overriding my critic here.
The Christmas spirit
to an extent.
I ain't angry about that. It was a very close.
Sure.
It was a very close thing for me. But
you guys put up a good defense.
Anyway, let's move on to antagonists. And Scott, I'm going to give you antagonists.
All right. Well, again, on the surface, Gremlins, the evil kind, of course. But so, like, I guess I'll try to tie it into both that and my abstract thing, as always. Like,
come on.
Obey the rules of magical creatures and so forth. Like I said, like, sort of tying back to themes. When you fuck around with something that you're not, like, familiar with and you were told, don't do X, Y, or Z, and like you said, whether accidentally or not, like, you have to be very diligent to prevent X, Y, or Z, otherwise catastrophe might ensue. But, I mean, like, of course, within the movie itself, the Gremlins, I think, are quite good antagonists because they're hard to fight. They multiply at an exponential rate in the right conditions. And they just fuck your shit up in, like, very annoying ways, but then, like, increasingly murderous ones as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like, they were very effective. In fact, we were trying to figure out, like, what the actual death toll of the town that they infested might very well be.
A lot.
Given the things we've seen them do. For sure. So, like, I think they, once the threat became clear, which was about probably a third or so into the movie, I would say, going back to, if you're doing intro body conclusion, traditionally you might say when Stripe jumps into the pool, that's like a very clear turning point. And after that, like, it's just...
Well, I think they were a threat before then, but once that happens...
Sure, certainly.
That's the, like, clear and present danger is, like...
Like, 4 or 5 of them was a threat, but Billy's mom almost took them out, like, single-handedly. Right? Like 1,000 of them is a nightmare.
Badass Billy's mom.
Which we'll talk to in secondary, I think, but yeah.
What I like about the Gremlins as a villain is that they can cause mass destruction if they put their minds to it, but they're complex in their simplicity.
It's so insane.
They're like Rube Goldberg villains almost.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like a lot of them, all they want to do is have fun. All they want to do is eat. All they like it's aside from the killing of the science teacher, which I think was a revenge act against the one Mogwai getting his blood drawn. Most of them are just like they leave. What's her name? Kate, yeah, alive to serve them beer. Yeah, like they're not just murderous creatures. They're like she serves the purpose of our entertainment. So but
I might have to revisit themes.
All right,
based on this, like I'm thinking about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So like they're fun villains. They're generally stopped because of their like in representation of like the worst aspects of humanity: gluttony, lust,
just hedonism in general.
Hedonism.
Sure.
Like they prioritize hedonism first, and that is their downfall. The only one that has really any brains is Stripe. And he's the primary antagonist. And he has a plan, but the majority of them don't, and it's very interesting to me. So I have to give them a very strong.
True, I kind of like that. They're sort of the madness of masses, but in a monster version.
You're absolutely right to call them complicated. This is a very strange thing for me. Like now, and this may cause me to revisit the themes. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not, but they are incredibly intelligent. They're all like 1 day old, basically, and they're learning language. They're watching movies and like
absorbing
enjoying
culture.
Them. And like this whole thing is very strange. You know what? Go on.
I just want to know about
please.
The language thing is that yes, they're learning English or bits and pieces, but they have a fully developed language between themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the entire thing. Like they are, by all accounts in this movie, incredibly intelligent creatures, right? Like they, after 1 day of existence, are understanding each other. They have at least not necessarily a hive mind, but like they have an understanding of each other's languages.
They're very good herd animals.
They end up all watching a movie together because they love Snow White. For some reason.
May I post the theory here?
Yeah.
So they all are bred from one source,
Mhm.
and that's Gizmo. They could theoretically, when they're born,
Have different aspects of him.
not only different aspects of
Traits.
it, personality traits,
Yeah.
but they might also have his, like, it's kind of like a budding type thing where they have
Yeah.
his
His
knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah,
coming
true.
off of
I
it.
like that.
So that would explain why they understand each other and have a limited English, and because they have accumulation of Gizmo's experiences prior to that.
I get that, but that's also an incredibly complicated thing, right? Like this, theoretically, you can make an argument that is the collective
yeah.
of like a Chinese culture, which is where they come from. Like there's all kinds of ways that you can like break this off and like talk about it. However, we're talking about antagonists right now, so let me get back to that a little bit. I love the Gremlins as the antagonist. They are wonderfully like comedic and like horrific at the same time, and
They're malicious and amusing at the same
it's
time.
very almost like Spielberg in this era produced a bunch of movies that he wasn't the director of, one of which being Poltergeist, and this feels Poltergeist-esque.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
in a very big way. It has the touches of a Spielberg movie without being that Spielberg directed movie, I guess we'll say. And so all of the Gremlins have this like comedic part to them, this like kind of darkly, cynically humorous part to them, and which comes out full force in the scene you were talking about, the bar scene, where Katie, what's her name?
Just Kate.
Kate. She's like the
Yeah, through
Not
all
like it
iterations of
matters.
that.
she's the female. She's the protagonist's like love interest, basically. She isn't very deep as a character, which
I think she does get. Wait, we'll go on. We'll talk about that later, though.
which she like
Go
whatever.
on.
She's fine, and she does have interesting scenes. That doesn't matter. That's going to be talked about in a minute in supporting. But
As I said, yes.
where she's being the bar scene where she's being forced to serve beer and like light the cigarettes of all the Gremlins, which is hilarious. And then they go on to do these like very dark murders throughout the movie, which I think is really funny. So like as antagonists, I really love them.
It sounded like you have it at a greater point.
It felt like that too. And I think I did when I started talking,
Yes.
but I think I've lost my way.
Gremlins are
So-
cool and effective.
But I mean the Gremlins are a very good antagonist because they are, first of all, they're legion,
Mhm.
right? There's like 1 million of them, and they embody the worst traits of humans, I guess.
Yeah, to a large extent, for sure.
The worst traits of Steven Spielberg.
Or no, not even the worst traits of humans. The worst,
Impulses, perhaps.
yeah, maybe like the worst like impulses that aren't necessarily considered that bad, right? It's not like they're going out and like
They're hedonists.
yeah, exactly. The hedonism of this movie, while not the antagonist, aids the antagonists in their quest to murder people, and like it's very well done in that sense. So I'm going to give it a 1.
Okay.
I'm giving the Gremlins a very strong one, yes.
And Ian, can you tell us about the protagonist,
Billy.
B-Dog?
I don't think he would like to be called B-Dog. Because he's not that interesting.
Yeah, but I wouldn't care
He's
if
okay.
I knew him. I would call him Billy. I would call him B-Dog, and he would like it.
All right.
He
Or not.
is. I guess this is the problem with like. He's a neutral face protagonist.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly.
Yeah.
But to an uninteresting degree, or perhaps not to a degree. Maybe it's like bringing it. Unfortunately, like he has his moments of gallantry. He has his moments of killing gremlins, but one of the problems, like everything else, almost every single supporting character is more interesting than he is. And again, I understand that's how the neutral face protagonist works and all that, but I don't know, I would be hard-pressed to give him a 1.
Yeah, I agree. I'm quite wavering on it. So I was going to try to propose you guys think of it this way, which is cribbing something you might say, E. Within the genre, I was going to try to judge him not quite on characterization per se, but on his actions within the happenings of the film. Like what the decisions he makes, that is, once he realizes something is going awry. And on that scale, he's not bad.
No.
Once he figures out a couple of like key things, he utilizes that knowledge against the Gremlins pretty well. In partnership with Kate, to be sure. Right, so yeah, he's kind of the blank everyman. Like, he has some characterization. He's a wannabe cartoon artist, and he likes comics, and he works at a bank.
I love him as a nerd.
Sure. He's like your every average nerd and bigger dreams and gets shit on by like if not the jock, just like the corporate guy who's his ostensible coworker, but is already ahead of him and is mocking him for it. All that. That's sort of like surfacey there. But like I said, I kind of want to judge him on like the actions of dealing with a supernatural threat. And on that front, he's pretty solid. So I'm kind of split on those two fronts.
You're right. He is competent where he does. When he finds out, he does kill, like, when the initial gremlin thing, he kills one of them. His mother kills most of them. He chases down
Stripe.
And throughout, he goes to the police. He does everything. I don't think he has that moment of stepping
over the line.
He never has that, like, awakening of the inner hero.
That's a really good point. That might be the thing that pushes me to a soft or a solid 0, in fact.
And I don't know if I can expand upon that much, but it's like,
you don't have
it just
to.
Doesn't happen.
That's a good case.
I think you convinced me, actually. I know I haven't spoken much on this. I didn't really have much to say about Billy. He's not someone who you can talk much about. But yeah, I hear both of those arguments. I hear the argument for him as a person. I hear the argument for him as like a plot device.
His agency within the plot.
Yeah, and I think he does. I think he is fine. He makes the right decisions. He's not like an incompetent hero who provokes evil by going back into the house.
Sure. In fact, he's tricked into breaking the worst rule of the Gremlins by them.
To further my point, is that Gizmo actually has that moment when he got into the car to go for the rescue point.
You're right.
And Billy did everything right, but he
didn't quite get there.
Arose to hero status.
Is Gizmo a protagonist? And if so, does this get a 1? That's a question.
Well, I was saving this debate for secondary because of what status to impart Gizmo.
I don't know if I can give Gizmo a secondary. Now that I think about it, I think Gizmo might be a protagonist. And if Gizmo's a protagonist, he saves the day, and he does have that moment as a hero.
No, that's an actually good. Yeah.
That might change things, yeah.
And I love Gizmo even more because he is the reason that all this is happening, right? Like, so he has to step up and save the town from himself, even though he can't.
From his dark side.
He doesn't really speak much English. Like, he can't actually talk to these people very much. And he's only been there for a short time, but he realizes that he has to step up as the hero. I love Gizmo as a hero. I think I have to give this a 1 because of him.
You know what? You convinced me.
All right.
I have to give it a 1.
I have to give this a 1
I'm
for
going to
Gizmo.
do the same because of that. We'll call it maybe like 0.5 between him and Billy, but really like 0.75 Gizmo and 0.25 Billy.
Yeah.
And I'll give it a 1 overall. But I wasn't going to based on, for just talking about Billy, but I think I will side with you guys that he indeed counts Gizmo, that is, and definitely gets a 1 because of it.
I agree with that. I'm a little bit disappointed in myself and all of us that we didn't think of Gizmo earlier.
Well,
but I'm glad for that. I'm glad we.
That's why we analyze it right now.
Swooped in right at the end with the Gizmo argument.
That's
all right, so that's gonna bring it to me with supporting characters. I'm sorry, because it's me. Because this is on me. I have to steal the best one, Billy's mom, who just is a Amazonian badass.
There's a trope. It's like crouching mouse, hidden badass, or something like that.
Destroys the first 3 gremlins that are encountered, basically, and she just fucks them up, and then runs out of juice so that somebody else can try to be the hero.
She was ambushed from a Christmas tree.
I almost would like this movie better if she just
showed up again later.
If she just killed every single gremlin.
Well, the movie would be over pretty quickly, but
like they somehow found water, and she had to like, take that sword and just like chop her way through 95 gremlins. That would have been amazing. There are other very good supporting characters. I'm just going to take that one because I know it's everybody's favorite, and I'll stop there and let everybody else talk about the other characters.
All right, goody.
So it's the townsfolk in general.
Mm.
One, I'm going to give a shout out to the black guy who dies first. Way to
poor bastard.
Keep up stereotypes, gremlins. But most of the townsfolk are very tropey, but
they're characters.
They have characters of like archetypes that you're used to.
Yeah.
But the way they handle it is interesting because, like the two cops, for instance, they're not over the top, but they're not realistic either.
Right.
They're not cartoonish cops that you might see.
They're closer to it, though.
But, yeah, they're kind of.
They're almost like Keystone Cops, kind of, but not quite that.
There's a kind of surreal nature to almost everyone almost being it's more of like a fictionalized version of real people. So like there's that, if you understand what I mean by that, like slight level up.
I do.
It feels, if I may, it feels a bit Jawsy to me.
Okay.
Like it feels
a little
somewhat like the townspeople in Jaws. Like all the townspeople have their part. Like some of them play their parts a little too close to the what's that term? Close to the whatever the fuck it is. Close to the thing.
It's somewhere between Jaws and Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Sure,
but sure. Like, I don't know. I think
I'll go with it.
But most of them are like it's they're not believable, but they're believable at the same time.
Yeah,
like you said, fictionalized versions, like hyper realized in a sense.
So Scott, if you'd like to.
No, I agree. So Billy's mom is pretty great. I think I don't remember the character's name, but the old man who's grumbling about how great American-made products are, and then gets killed by his own tractor by the gremlins who have infested it. I always liked him. Like he's solid. I guess you're give a shout out to the old wizened man and the guy who sells Mogwai to Billy's father.
Oh, the Asian stereotype.
Yeah. Guy with a mystical shop. And also I guess we can mention there was one more. The dog, I guess you can say, Billy's dog, kind of helps out here and there.
That is a stoic take it as it comes dog.
That dog has seen a lot of shit in its day, and I guess we can count Kate as well. Throw her in there, and she's pretty, like you said, she's solid. She's again characterized enough, but not to a great degree. She has that one speech of why she hates Christmas, and it was a very dark story. Her father accidentally died trying to be Santa Claus in Christmas in her horrifying way. That was horrifying her over it. And she teams up. I'll allow what I said about Billy. She also figures out what the weaknesses of the gremlins are quickly enough, and then helps him and first of all uses them herself to escape from the bar, and then teams up with Billy to capitalize on that and fight them down. So that's all fine. And like you said, the town itself and old lady Potters, whatever her name was, like the old grumpy lady in town who's trying to run everybody out, trying to
just part antagonist.
Get richer, yeah. I mean, is she?
She's just an asshole.
Yeah.
She wants to kill the dog. She's talking about how she wants to kill the dog.
Yeah, but that's not like a plot of the movie. And then she gets taken out in a pretty badass way by the gremlins.
Judge Reinhold appears and then disappears.
He's a dickhead too, but
for
what did he
2 minutes.
Decide halfway through that he didn't we set him up as an antagonist.
This is some room shit.
He's just
some room shit.
This is some of the room shit.
He's just part of Billy's life, and then he's not. But anyway, overall, I'm going to give them all a pretty solid one. Definitely for Billy's mom, and everything else, like I said, is rounded out pretty nicely. And you get a feel again for this, if not quite surreal, Twin Peaks' town, just the kooky characters who inhabit this town and what their various fates.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it a 1. I think, Ian, you're on the same board with us?
1.
All right. So we're all going to give supporting 1, and we're going to move on to dialogue. Scotty, tell us about dialogue.
All right, man. So another one I wasn't sure about just because, like we said, I hadn't seen it in a while, so I wasn't sure how well it was going to hold up. But I think my gut instinct, having seen it just now, is that it does hold up pretty well. A lot of the jokes are solid. A lot of the interactions are perfectly fine, and there was nothing cringeworthy. Nothing seems odd. It's all very natural, organic sounding. So there's a couple of good one-liners here and there that made us all chuckle. We're like, oh, I forgot about that. That's really funny. So I mean, I don't have much to say in general aside from that about it. I'm probably leaning towards a solid 1 because again, I can't pick out anything that was completely out of place or that it didn't feel like held up versus my memory of the film. So if you guys got anything, hit me with it.
So I want to reference 2 things. One is the father's salesman pitches. I understand it's part of his character, and they're supposed to be annoying, but they were annoying.
Sure.
I really was bothered. I hate sales type stuff anyway, but that bothered me. But again, I understand why it's there. But Kate's speech about her father dying, I understand they set it up, Scott. I brought this up during.
Did you like or dislike it? I guess you're gonna say dislike.
It's so strange. Why did they decide to include this here? There's no need for it. It's generally a lighthearted film, considering all the people who are dying. And then or just randomly they have this death snap the neck in the chimney. It's so strange to me. It's something that every time I watch this movie, I forget that it's in the movie. And then I watch it and I'm asked the same questions. So, yeah.
I mean, I get that, but does that outweigh everything else that's pretty solid? Otherwise, like the jokes and the gags and so forth, like I said?
No, because I remember when the cops were talking, I said, while watching the movie, I'm giving this a 1 for dialogue, because their dialogue was, for characters that are kind of fictionalized, realistic people, their dialogue was also that, and it was fun, and it was just what I wanted out of this movie. Yeah. But those 2 aspects bother me, and I needed to mention them.
Fair enough. I get you.
I think that's a good point. A lot of throughout this movie, the dialogue is kind of witty, but me looking back on this movie, I enjoyed the dialogue, but I wouldn't look back on it and say, oh, that was witty dialogue. It was snappy dialogue. Mm-hmm. I don't think it necessarily was. I think it was good. I think it was fine. There were certain parts that were played for comedy. There were certain parts that were played for seriousness. And I think they were all done just fine. But there's something that's holding me back when I'm talking about this, and it's the idea of I know a lot of the scripts that Spielberg directed, produced, whatever, have that wittiness to them, have that snappiness to them, and I don't think this had that exactly. And I keep thinking back on the certain scenes, like the scene where he's introducing Corey Feldman to the Mogwai to Gizmo.
That's a weird scene too.
And it is kind of weird, and I keep thinking back on that scene. I'm like, oh, that must have been really snappy dialogue, and I think about the dialogue, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was just very mundane, and a lot of times that's fine. And I think in this movie it might be fine, but this is another one of those questions where I'm really on the fence. I think I'm gonna give dialogue a 0.
I kind of get you, but
I think I'm gonna give dialogue 0. It's just not. It's and I'm giving it a 0. Probably unfairly to an extent, because the dialogue is fine in this movie. In fact, it's probably average to slightly better than average. But in a movie like this, that I remember this fondly, and not only that I remember this fondly, but that is produced by Spielberg. There's obviously a lot of oversight by him. A lot of his other movies of this era have much better dialogue and snappy lines by these younger characters that are you remember, because when you're a kid, that's oh, that kid is clever. That's kind of what I want to model myself to be. And I don't think there's very many clever lines by any of the characters in this movie.
May I?
Sure, please
All right,
retort.
so one is I agree that a lot of the cleverness and the humor derives from sight gags.
Yes.
Um,
And I appreciate that,
yeah,
but
and
I
that's
need
style.
some of the dialogue as well.
the
you know?
one thing I'm going to say is, and the why I might give you made a lot of good points. I almost got on 0. I'm going to give it a 1 for this reason. The Gremlins language. And the fact that through mostly grunts and groans and
Clicks and whistles.
Exactly. And then the occasional English scattered throughout. It made it feel like a real language, and there were laughs that came out of hearing the Gremlins have exchanges with each other. And without understanding the language. So I'm going to give that a 1. Just wanted to toss that out to you.
I like that
That's
angle.
a very good point. That is a very good point. I think I might throw that more into style than dialogue, though.
Okay.
I could see that too, but nevertheless.
It's tough. It is that is you definitely given me something that is throwing a monkey wrench into what I was going to score
Right,
this.
well, how about this? While you mull it over quickly, I will say that I kind of had the same problem to an extent where going into it, I was like, you know what? If I found myself getting bored or like rolling my eyes at the dialogue, even though as much as I remember liking it in my youth, this movie, I'm going to give it a 0. But because that didn't happen, Steve-O, because it was serviceable, like you said, but nothing like egregiously stood out to me. Maybe I just feel different about the Kate's speech, if you will.
Yeah.
But like even disregarding that, and I do like the angle of like the Gremlins, like sort of pseudo language that throws in like actual real words, English words as well. But I'm saying like on average, I think it works more than it doesn't. So that's my argument for a 1.
I can see that argument, and honestly, the strongest point that was made was the Gremlins language, the Mongoloid language, I guess. But I think I am gonna push that to Maguire. I think I am gonna push that to style.
Sure, and I can see that too. I think that's a fine.
And I'm
point.
gonna leave dialogue at a 0. It's a very soft 0. It was very close to a 1, but I think I'm gonna give it a 0 for that.
I got you. Like I said, I was pretty wavering, and I was on the razor's edge as well. But we're just coming down different sides of the razor, it seems.
Yeah.
But
All
I
right.
got you.
So that's gonna go to style, and Ian.
Well, I don't think you can give this a 0 because the animatronics, the puppets, all of that with the Gremlins is absolutely fantastic. There are 2 scenes in it. One where I noticed a puppet wire.
You saw the wires coming down, yeah, sure.
And then another one was it's the scene where all of the Gremlins are coming out, like after the Stripe goes into the pool, and it was fake, obviously. Like it broke it broke that like immersion into it. But however, for all of the stunts that go into this, then like everything is like fantastic. It holds up to this day, which is why like puppets and animatronics are the best when it comes to special effects,
practical effects. Yeah,
and so I just want to say Gremlins, and also it does balance well, as we mentioned earlier, genre wise between being a comedy horror Christmas movie. I mean, it seems funny when you think about those 3 combined together, but it does its business very well.
Yeah, I largely agree. I don't have much more to add. I'm just going to sort of reiterate and say that, yes, the Gremlins are iconic, I would say, at this point, and they still hold up, they still look great, and they're amusing and when they need to be, and they're also like menacing. The couple of shots you mentioned, I just was going to say the cinematography at large, just shots of the town, the way things were framed, even before like Monster Madness starts happening, if you will. And one other thing we did mention earlier, but I meant to mention it here, is how some characters will be watching other movies, like you said, so, and that sort of adds onto the elements that this film is building upon. So I thought that was a nice touch. And yeah, everything else just holds up perfectly fine, so.
I have a decent amount to say about style. Actually,
I left one glaring thing for you, Steve-O.
I really love this movie. Yes, as usual, I will talk about that. But I really love this movie in terms of style, and I guess I'll get to that first. So the soundtrack in this film is terrific. I love it front to back.
And the Gremlin theme is also iconic, I would add.
There's one point where it's playing Silent Night in this like very ominous, slow tone.
Yep.
It's so good.
It's creepy and good. Yeah.
Some of the other things that have to do with style, the cute gremlin versus evil gremlin look is perfected. There are, like, immediately, you know, they didn't have to wait till Gremlins 2 to do this really well. Gizmo is, like, the cutest pet in the world.
Sure.
Immediately. And the evil version of him, Stripe, we'll say, if you want to pick one of them, is so just repulsive. And they are like two sides of the Gremlin
and
coin, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
I get you.
It's just the visuals on these two character sketches are done so well, so perfectly to make you love one and hate the other like right away. I can't give that enough credit. Whoever did the design of these creatures is.
May I also say that Gizmo versus the other Mogwai prior to them turning, Gizmo was always the more adorable and innocent.
Sure.
Of.
Yeah. Even though they looked similar, like you don't really necessarily know what the difference is between them, but you know that one is better, one is good, and one is not so good, right? Like they are. Whoever did the design on the Mogwai did a brilliant job. The other thing that I wanted to mention briefly, and I think that this movie is great style-wise throughout, top to bottom. And that's something that you're going to find with pretty much any movie that Spielberg touches in the 80s and probably in the 90s as well. But the other thing that I want to mention is like the visceralness of the Gremlins between their, Mogwai stage and their Gremlin stage, we'll say. The eating... Now I'm going to laugh every time you go on camera. The eating and like the viscous like mouth fluids that are happening like as they eat, and then when they turn into those egg sacs, that's just so repulsive, but like so like great. Like it just like instantly transports me back to the first time that I saw this movie when I was a kid.
So Steve, real quick, I want to just mention that's sort of like some light kind of alien shit. Like they got the alien drool coming on and the alien egg sac.
Exactly.
So anyway,
it brings you right back to like what you felt the first time you saw this movie, even now, and like that's kind of that really I keep saying visceral. That's like it's that really visceral reaction to this thing that you can't really. It's tough to have with movies nowadays, like not movies nowadays, but like a movie that you see now. It's something new that you see now.
CGI versus practical effects.
Maybe that's exactly what it is. But regardless, I think that the style is incredible in this film. I'm going to give it probably the strongest one of all of my ones in this review. So I'm going to give it 1.
Just one last thing. I'm a sucker for bad inventions. And there are some great good
inventions.
Yeah, like
oh god, yes. The juicer?
No,
the egg cracker? The egg cracker?
Sure. So Peltz's inventions also is in style and gets a 1 on top of everything else, and I agree.
All right. So 1's all around for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be me for recommendation, and I strongly recommend seeing this movie, despite the fact that apparently I'm going to give it the lowest score.
Who does that?
I know. What kind of jerk.
I'm going to send Gremlins after you.
This is a movie that I think everyone should see when they're younger.
Hmm.
Like between the ages of 9 and 13, you should see this movie because it kind of becomes the movie that you base a lot of your movie reviews off of. And a lot of like, not, you know, I say movie reviews not in the way that we're reviewing movies, but the way
Sure.
that you view movies, you
Your
know?
taste.
Yeah. I think that this is one of those movies that if you see it early, kind of sets the bar for similar films, both horror-wise and comedy-wise. And I highly suggest you, if you haven't seen it, even if you're older, check it out. It's a solid film, and it's just a fun way to spend an hour and a half, and that's it.
When I was young,
Here we go.
my parents showed me Gremlins because they thought it was a lighthearted comedy. And I'm talking about like pretty young,
Like scared the shit out of you.
Yeah, like
5 years old.
yeah, around there,
Yeah.
and I was really like terrified by it. So if you want your child,
So definitely so to your very young child.
yes, because they should all turn out like me. But no, this movie holds up. It's still fun to watch. Even if I've seen it a lot in my life, and I still enjoyed it. So I don't know. Like, I think I would have really, really loved it if this was my first time watching it.
Yeah.
And I probably would have given it a higher score. But since it's repeating viewing, I'm kind of softened to it. But still, it's a great movie. So yeah, see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to definitely recommend it. I think I'm, at this point, probably giving it a 10, although I wasn't going to originally, but you guys convinced me on a couple of things.
Probably.
But I was definitely going to recommend it no matter what going into it because, yes, it has a nostalgia factor for me because I did see it between like the ages of 9 and 13, whatever you just said, Steve-O, a number of times in my life. And I think it does inform your young self and how you view like movies like this and movies in general. But and as you said, I wasn't sure like how well it's going to stand up to my taste nowadays. But it still absolutely does. Like, it's just a fun movie to watch regardless. And especially during the season, I think it's even more sort of like pertinent. Like, throw it on while the fire's going and just have a good time watching Gremlins. And yeah, if you somehow haven't seen it, maybe if you're a younger listener and you're just weren't within the generation that we were to sort of grow up on it, I think you'll still enjoy it, still get something out of it. And again, like, it's really well done and certainly informed my love of like, kind of, like you said, Poltergeist and things like that. And yeah, just on its own, I think it still holds up. It's a good, enjoyable movie to watch, and I would always recommend Gremlins. So
check it out. All right. So it sounds like we've got our scores. Scott, highest score.
was it a 10?
10?
Yeah.
Ian, you gave it a 9.
I did.
Nice.
And I guess I'm the curmudgeon tonight.
You're the old lady at the bank.
I'm the one that wants to kill a dog, apparently.
Yeah.
I gave it an 8. Which gives us an aggregate score of a 9, which I think is pretty fair. This is a really good movie.
It's damn good, still.
And check it out. So that's going to do it for us on this Christmas special of The Lost Signals.
Ho, ho, ho.
I have been here as your host, as Stephen Ramosi, playing the character
Next
Stephen
time will be
Ramosi.
someone else.
And I've been joined by the character Jonathan Ian Mezer.
Gremlins over It's a Wonderful Life.
And as the gremlin of the crew, Scott Perlow.
And yes, and never get me wet after midnight. Good night. Happy holidays. See you next time.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manser. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.